We're going to start learning about the laws of the Seder, and we're going to go through the most commonly asked questions, that are at least some of the most commonly asked questions regarding the Seder. So we'll start off with this is from chapter 472 in the Shulchan Aruch. I'm taking from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. It says that when we come into the night of Pesach, our table should already be set. Should come. The table, everything is ready, but there's a reason for this. It also says by Shabbos that the table should be set in preparation. But here there's a different reason. The reason why we have the table set on the night of Pesach before the holiday starts, so that you can start the Seder as early as possible. By Shabbos, it's other reasons, maybe because we want to have the house ready and Shalom Bayit, and everything should look nice in honor of the Seder, the Shabbos. But by the night of Pesach, we don't want the kids to fall asleep. There is a mitzvah in the Torah, lesaper lebincha, to tell over to your children, the Gadta, Ayon, you have to tell over the Haggadah, and it's a mitzvah min Torah. It's an obligation from the Torah to tell over, and it should be told over to everyone, women, men, children, and therefore it's so important that throughout the night that the children are always involved, because they are the ones who are always not involved. They're the ones who are always playing. They're the ones who are always somewhere else, and they're the ones who are going to sleep, and they're the ones who want to find a reason to leave the table. So throughout the Seder, we find how the halachas try to get the kids' interest, so they should be there. And the very first thing is that we should start as soon as possible, that the kids should not be tired and go to sleep early or something, so the Seder needs to be ready. The only thing that is not prepared before the actual night of Pesach is the kaira itself, because our custom is to actually prepare the kaira specifically as we are preparing, as we're sitting ready to make Kiddush. That's when we prepare the kaira. And there's a whole thing. Some people, the egg and the certain order, and there's customs on how it's placed, but it should be done while everyone is there and they're putting it together. And then also you recognize it more that as someone's putting it together, as opposed to just all being ready from beforehand. Another interesting thing is that the matzahs need to be prepared as well before Yom Tov. There's different types. You can open a box, broken pieces, burnt pieces, or even if they're not burnt, sometimes we find like a bubble in the matzah, a shape which is not. Those sometimes are a problem when they are a kafula, when they're like folded. It could be, preferably we should not use those matzahs. We're afraid that maybe it didn't 100% bake properly in all the areas. And even if it does, we have many stringencies on Pesach that we still wouldn't want to use it. Definitely not for the Seder.
Because you're not making up the measurement of it?
No, because if it's not flat, it didn't bake 100% proper in every degree. As if it has like a special cup shape in it or something like that, kafur, it's rounded on top of each other. It's folded over. So we try to just separate those before the Seder. We're not going to look as the Seder. Let me find the right matzahs. And also our minig is also to have round matzahs. It should be like a kaira that we place. Those are the preferable matzahs to choose. So they should all be chosen from before and not looking through as the Seder is now beginning.
I guess the malacha butter doesn't apply.
I'm not even going into butter. Butter can apply depending on if you're taking bad from good, but
it comes to the matzahs.
It's ochel. It's both ochel, but if you want to specifically take bad and put it on the side, that wouldn't be such a good idea. Okay, now another important rule is that you have to do haseba. You have to recline on the night of Pesach, and as it says, it's derech cherus. It's the way of freedom, like how the kings, the malachim, and the gdolim would eat. They would all recline when they ate. Now they specifically recline on the left side, as it says, "Chayev adam laharis esazgiluhu ata yotze mishibu mitzrayim." Today, on the night of Pesach, we have to look and show ourselves that we're leaving Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt, as it says, "Ba'avor zeh Hashem asa Hashem li b'tzeisi mitzrayim." Because of this, for the sake of this, Hashem took me out of Egypt. You have to remember that we were slaves in Egypt, and now we're not. We're free, and we should recline as we eat. So it's very important that we recline. Now, how do we do so? There's a preferable way, and then there's other ways that work. The best way would be that if you have an actual chair with a side, either you can make a side, some sort of thing, and you put a pillow, and you could recline on the left side as you will see which things you need to recline for. You technically could also recline without anything, but that's not the way that the kings and the special people, how they would eat. So if you can, sometimes it's a problem because people don't have a lot of space. It's a packed table, and there's a lot of people sitting one crunched next to each other. But if you can have a special armchair with a pillow, that would be great. Now, another thing is that why do we recline on the left side? Why don't we recline on the right side? So the reason, Gemara tells us that you could choke. If you're going to recline on the right side, even a lefty who reclines on the right side, the food could go in the esophagus. But on the left side, it's not really a problem. It's not a problem. It's not going to be a danger at all. Okay, the custom today is that women don't recline, even though that the Ramah writes, the Ramah, Ashkenazic authority, he writes that by him, women are no problem, they can recline, they're chashuvim, they're important. But nonetheless, today it's not the custom that women usually recline. There is an opinion, the Alter Rebbe brings this down, Bizman hazeh ein sarich lahasib. You have the view, the Ravia, I believe, the Ravia, he holds that anybody doesn't need to recline. And since the Ravia, there's a view who holds you don't need to recline, so women rely on that lechatchila. So that's not the custom generally that they recline. Now another thing is that when do we recline? What parts of the Seder? So it says that we recline when we eat the matzah, the kazayis, the olive size of the first time we're eating the matzah. We also recline when we're eating the korech, the sandwich of Hillel. And then we recline the afikomen when we're eating the final matzah to finish the meal. And also the 4 cups of wine we recline for. I didn't do in the order. Like the first, the cups of wine were 4, the first 3 at least. But and we recline for the wine as well. Now what?
You're already reclining.
What?
By the 4th, you're already reclining.
You're reclining and laying down, coming back from the couch. And what happens if you forgot to recline? Does it mean that you have to go back? Were you yotze? Well, we did bring the view of the Ravia who says that today you don't need to recline, but men don't rely on that. They try to make it a point of reclining. And we'll see that really it's a very severe issue that you should recline when you're able to. And that's the custom. Men do recline, so we'll see right now as follows. If you didn't recline, you didn't do a seba when you're eating the matzah for the korech or in the normal matzah, or the afikomen, says the Alter Rebbe in his standard halacha, preferable, you should eat it again, with reclining. Even though you ate a whole kazais, which is like about a half a matzah, to go again. Another, that's the preferable, this is what you should try to do. After all, it is it's mitzvah in a Torah to eat matzah, so you might as well try to do it in the proper, best way. However, regarding the kosot, the cups of wine. So the rule is that only by the 2nd cup, if you forgot to recline, then you need to go back and drink the wine again, reclining. But the 1st cup, the 3rd cup, and the 4th cup, if you forgot to recline, you do not need to go back and recline. What's the reason? Very simple. What's the purpose of the 1st cup? Kiddush. What's the purpose of the 2nd cup? Right before the meal. The one where we say the Haggadah, and then the 3rd one is like before the meal, 4th one is at the very end. So the rule is like this: when we're drinking, the 1st cup, we don't have an intention that we're going to be drinking again anytime soon, and it's for Kiddush only. It's only for Kiddush, and therefore, if you forgot to recline, it would be that you would need to make a new bracha again. And if we're going to say that you should make a new bracha again, then it looks like, there's not 4 cups, there's 5 cups. Because you're making like another hagafen or something. See, the Torah says, there's a pasuk which is Veitzeiti let me remind myself the four lashonos of Geula, the four expressions of redemption are Veitzeiti ve'galti l'kachti Ve'evesi yatzati ve'galti l'kachti. So these four expressions, I took out, I redeemed, I brought, I took them. So these four expressions are Chachamim said to show that each expression of how Hashem took us out of Egypt is we should thank Him with a cup of wine. That's why we have the 4 cups of wine during the Seder. So if we're going to have another Borei Pri Hagafen, it'll look like maybe there are 5 cups, and we don't want people to think that way. So we therefore enacted that you can't make a second. If you forgot to recline on the first cup, the second cup, however, you're allowed to drink in between. So therefore, you can just drink again and recline this time. And then regarding the 3rd and 4th cup, so the custom is not to, again, for other reasons, it will look, you might have to make a new bracha or something, and therefore it'll look like you're adding on the 4 cups, and therefore we don't recline. Now, we don't drink again because of the problem. We don't drink to recline because the problem will look like 5 cups. You're allowed, however, the Alter Rebbe brings that if you want to make tonight a condition that if I forget to recline, I'm allowed to continue to drink after the first cup. So if you indeed did forget to recline, then you can drink again. But that's if you make that condition. Okay. All right. Now, another important rule regarding the Seder is regarding the wine itself. What type of wine should we use? So, number one, as we mentioned, it is a chovah. It is an obligation for everyone to drink wine on the night of Seder, 4 cups, and not 4 sips. And I know for some people it's very hard for them to drink wine. So what do we do in that case? What about if somebody is diabetic, can't drink wine, can't have sugar? So they have to find another solution. And there are sometimes solutions. First of all, you have wines where they have almost no sugar in them or very little, almost next to nothing. So if someone can't have sugar, they should look not 2 days before Pesach, but well in advance to try to find the ones which have like almost no sugar. Or, obviously the doctor doesn't allow, but we can usually find a solution for every person. Also, you can get the minimal size cups. You don't have to have this big cup and drink, but you should try to have a revis. A revis is 86 milliliters. So we try to have, you don't have to have such a big cup. Also, regarding the color of the wine, so it brought down in general, there is a preference of red wine over white wine. It's learned out from a pasuk. If I have the pasuk, I think it's the end of Siman Tachayin Beis. Yeah, the pasuk says, Al teira yain ki yisadim. The pasuk is from Mishlei. It says, don't look at the wine because it's red. So we infer from there, it implies from there that wine should preferably be red. And then it's brought down in the same sif that it's true, you don't have to get red wine over white wine, but on Pesach there is a preference, even more than all year round, because it also is a reminder of how Pharaoh would kill the Jewish children, and he used their blood to bathe in. So we remind ourselves of that, we're thinking of the whole incident of Mitzrayim, and we remind ourselves of that. Then the Alter Rebbe concludes, because there was, during times when there would be these blood libels on the Jewish people, so they stopped the custom. They don't have to take specifically red wine. But, today, if you can, it's always good. The Alter Rebbe brings one more important point, that even though that we said that red wine maybe has a preference because the pasuk shows that wine, there is a preference that should be red. However, if we are talking about better quality wine, which is not red, white, let's say, then you should go for that. Because the higher quality of the wine, higher quality overrides the color it is. And there are those who would add a color dye, like a red color to it to make it red. And that's absolutely not something you would want to say, I should take it red. when they added just color. Either it comes naturally from the grape itself, but if they're adding a dye to it, so there's no point in getting red wine. And even by the Rebbe, there were certain years that he didn't use red wine. So it's already, perhaps maybe the wine of the winemaker had better, or the winemaker that year had white wine, but whatever the reason may be. But, if you could get red, it seems to be a good thing. Okay, now regarding a few more importance, which is that the mitzvah of the Haggadah and all of the Pesach laws equally apply to women as they do to men. It's actually learned out, Sif Chaf Hey, in the same chapter, Siman that we were saying, for chapter Taf Ayin Beis 472. It says that even though that children, their fathers have to educate them to drink the cups. With them, I guess they'll have to have grape juice or something. But if they, reach chinuch, they definitely need to try to have, the Arba Koisis and participate in the Seder. It also says if they have understanding, you should tell them about Yitzias Mitzrayim throughout the night. They should participate. They have the 4 questions that the children ask. We do things throughout the Seder to keep them involved, and it's actually a mitzvah min Torah. It's also known that Alter Rebbe holds that if you're doing a mitzvah min Torah, you need to have kavanah that you're doing this mitzvah. Sometimes we're doing something, we don't even think that we're fulfilling the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, of telling over about leaving Mitzrayim. So you should know that in addition to just saying the Haggadah with everyone, that we're fulfilling a mitzvah min Torah of saying the Haggadah and telling it over to children and everyone around us at the Seder. So that's something you should actually have kavanah to do. Now another thing is that by women as well, they are fully obligated in the Seder and all the things of Pesach like men are. And the reason is because even though that women are exempt from a mitzvah aseh shazman grama, they're exempt from a mitzvah which is a time-bound mitzvah, right? But nonetheless, here they are obligated in this, even though that So why are they obligated? Because the miracle had to do with women as well. They left Egypt, so they're fully obligated in all of the mitzvahs of the Haggadah, and just like men are. And in addition to that, eating and that could be it's only rabbinical, the obligation on that regard. But regarding, because it says they were involved in the miracle, but at the end of the day, because mitzvah aseh shazman grama, a positive time-bound mitzvah, so they're usually exempt from. So it could be that this is only a rabbinical obligation on their part, but they still have to do everything like the men. But nonetheless, eating matzah is a biblical obligation for them, for sure. And this is learned out from a Hekesh, 2 psukim. It says on one pasuk, by not eating chametz, it says, Lo sochel olav chametz. Do not eat chametz. Shivas yamim teichel olav matzah. 7 days, eat matzahs. Why is it comparing the two? Just to show us, just like they're not allowed to eat chametz, so too they have an obligation to eat matzah. And therefore, it's all the rules apply to them as well over there. Now, there is a whole, in the Shulchan Aruch, in chapter 473, a whole list of parts of the Haggadah which are the primary, most important things that they need to be said. And then there are parts which are not as 100% obligated. Why? What does it make a difference? We say the whole Haggadah, right? So I have heard, and I've had to ask this question 1 or 2 times. We did a Seder. I did one time a Seder in an Israeli police station, and it was they were guarding the Kotel. It was in Ramat Eshkol. They came back, and whatever, we were not able to do every single part of the Haggadah because by the time they come back, and so we have to do the main parts of the Haggadah. And there are parts within the Haggadah which are extra, which we do, it's a minhag to say, but in a pressing need, sometimes when you're doing a Seder for a bunch of people and it's not possible to say the whole thing, then you have to at least say those things. So if somebody does want to look that up, you can find it in Sif, in Siman Taf Ayin Gimel, where it mentions the main parts that can't be skipped. Also, I once did a Seder in Ukraine, and again, they didn't really, there's children there, and there were people going to leave. See, if someone's going to leave before eating the matzah, it's like you missed the whole purpose of the main mitzvah. So sometimes if you're extremely time you can say it afterwards, or you'll say the whole thing, or you'll do it later, but they should participate in the main mitzvahs min Torah. Okay, and I guess another thing to conclude on regarding this, just an interesting thing. Well, it's not 100% connected with the Seder. The Rebbe writes that it's very important that we don't eat gebracht of matzah which was mixed with water or got wet. Gebracht is matzah shuya, as it's called, to the extent that if we're talking about a child, and now the reason was mainly about 300 years ago when this became popular, about from the times of Baal Shem Tov, a little before, because of the concern that maybe a part of the matzah didn't get fully baked, and if you put water on it, it could, or a liquid or something, it could make. So although that today it's not so likely, but there could always be a little extra grain of flour, so we extra are careful. Now, the Rebbe says it could be a chash d'oraisa, so we have to be very, so it shouldn't get wet. So we should have an easy preparations into Pesach.